Greetings. I'm Dr. Richard DiCenso, known to most of my patients as Dr. D. And yes, I am wearing a couple of unusual devices today. And no, I have not been abducted by aliens. I've not been incarcerated or committed. However, I have decided to introduce you to a couple of the tools that we use most regularly to assess and to determine the degree to which one of the three influential realms that cause or contribute to chronic symptoms can be implemented as part of your day-to-day discipline to determine to what degree the virtual realm is actually impacting or affecting your biological environment. Now, this particular device is called a Muse. It's a personal EEG machine. And I'm going to go into a little detail about why this is important, why it's significant, why I'm even showing it to you today. But also, the earbuds that I have in today are obviously tied to a little empty MP3 player. And this is another part of the process that you can use independently, or you can use it in conjunction with the Muse or the personal EEG machine to help determine how effective any of the tools, strategies, and techniques that you're currently using are actually benefiting you. And you can archive all of this information on the Muse site or on the Muse app on your phone. And it'll help you to make decisions about really how effective the tools and strategies and techniques that you've been using up to this point have been, and whether or not something else is indicated or there's something else that you can use. And you can also make a decision as to how effective those things are. But now, before I get into all of that, welcome to all of you. And I want to be sure that you've all got contact here. We had some audio difficulties just before we went live. So if you can hear me, if you can see me, if there's no problem, hit one of the buttons, hit the wow, hit the heart, hit the like button, but just give us some feedback. Let us know that we're okay. And I want to address one of the questions that I got here in the last couple of weeks that is a good question, and it's a question I get quite frequently. And the question revolved around the concept as to whether or not what it is that I do with the matrix assessment profile, the MAP, is energy medicine. And the short answer is yes. But the long answer is everything is energy medicine when you look at it from the perspective of the whole person. Because there are different levels, there are different varieties of influences that we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis. Some of them physical, which delivers information to one part of the brain. Some of them are biochemical, biological, that are basically introduced through things like diet and supplements and exercise and sleep that can cause or contribute disruption, disorder, deficiencies, compromises in the biological environment. But also there's the virtual realm, which is part of the focus of today's conversation, which includes things like your psychological makeup, your spiritual makeup, your emotional makeup, and it involves processes that involve things like a thought proceeds into a feeling, and a feeling proceeds into an emotion, and an emotion basically triggers a reaction in some way, shape, or form, and that reaction ends up as a result in your life experience. Now, as many of you know at this point, I'm the CEO of Matrix Transformation, author of the book Beyond Medicine, Exploring a New Way of Thinking, and also the creator and developer of an evaluation process known as the MAP. And MAP is an acronym for the Matrix Assessment Profile. And this evaluation process is unique in the sense that it takes into consideration the whole person instead of just an aspect of the person. So an aspect of the person would be something like, well, I've been told that I have anxiety or depression, so I'm going to go to a psychologist or to a psychiatrist or some other person, individual specializing in that part of the human experience. Same thing goes with general practitioner. Same thing goes with any specialty. So with a general practitioner, you're looking at an overall conventional assessment in terms of blood work, perhaps urine, perhaps some x-rays or something more advanced if something more evolved is suspected, like a CT scan or an MRI, a functional MRI or something like that. But the bottom line here is that irregardless of what evaluation you subscribe to, you're going to get a piece of the puzzle in return. Just like with the Muse, with the personal EEG, with the earbuds connected to an audio program that I developed called Dichotic Dissertation, which has essentially a similar motive in terms of introducing it into your day-to-day environment, in the sense that one of the strategies associated with listening to these audios is simply to cultivate an alpha wave length frequency that is more consistent than the other brainwave frequencies that are available. And that is for the purpose of establishing a calm, content, peaceful, focused, concentrated mindset. Now, before we get into brainwave frequencies at all in terms of, well, is it really all in my head, Dr. D? Well, yes and no. Because in terms of the whole person, we have some things to consider. First of all, the foundation for the matrix assessment profile, other than the biological fluid analysis, samples of urine and saliva that you provide in the comfort of your own home, send them back to our facility, we evaluate them. But if it was limited to that, all you're going to see are the effects associated with compromises in the biological environment. And then there are a couple of questions. Number one is going to be why, which is a question that runs throughout this evaluation process. Why are these compromises in existence to begin with? Why am I experiencing these symptoms? Why have I been everywhere, done everything, seen everybody? Why am I being told that the symptoms are normal for my age? The tests are all negative. We can't find anything wrong. We're going to have to wait and see. We're going to have to run more tests, or the symptoms are all in your head. And so that's probably one of the more consistent and viable foundations for us to build on when you're told something like that, but not for the reasons that you might think. It does not boil down to a pill for a problem, even though there are pills in the form of supplements as introduced as part of the recommendations that I construct for you individually, having seen your health history, having listened to your concerns, your symptoms, but also having looked at your personal introduction material. Structurally, do you exercise? How do you sleep? What is your weight? How do you breathe? What kind of symptoms are you experiencing? Also, what's your biochemistry look like as viewed through the urine and the saliva, but then some more esoteric or intangible concepts associated with things like, what's your psychological makeup? Who are you? What's your emotional makeup? What's your spiritual makeup? What are you grounded in repetitively that may in fact be contributing to something we've talked about in past videos, that being a vicious cycle disorder or symptoms that persist over a long period of time that to this point have absolutely no accurate diagnosis in place to explain that one question: why are you experiencing what you are, and what can you do about it? This is the whole purpose of the matrix assessment profile. The MAP, and MAP is an acronym for the matrix assessment profile, and it's based on a few simple concepts. One is, if you want to get from where you are to where you want to be, obviously a map can come in pretty handy. Also, if you don't change directions, more than likely you're going to end up where you're headed. And then more significantly, something that Hippocrates said a long time ago: it doesn't matter what the symptoms are, what the disorder is, what the disease is, what the diagnosis is. What matters far more is who the individual is that's experiencing these symptoms. Now, this is important, And it is the foundation for the entire matrix assessment profile, but it's also important in terms of any evaluation and any evaluation results that you might submit to and you might acquire in your pursuit of well-being. In other words, one of the goals that I think we all have in common is that we'd all like to die healthy. And that's a legitimate goal. It's a good goal. But how do you do that? How do you get past reading all of the solicitations in your inbox, all of the solicitations and advertisements on television, in the magazines, in every media source that you can conceive of? And how do you make a decision as to whether or not that something, that single thing, that pill for a problem is going to turn your symptoms into solutions? Well, the fact of the matter is that it's probably not. And even though everything works according to the 7 caveats in Beyond Medicine, Exploring a New Way of Thinking, that I typically use as a guide for interpreting the results of your matrix assessment profile, along with 6 or 7 other caveats, everything works, which simply means that everything works, but everything works most effectively when it's applied to a specific set of circumstances for which it's most indicated. So this is why you see these incredible testimonials. You see, I took this and I got incredible results. I did that and I got incredible results. I eat this diet and I get incredible results. They're all true, but they're all true for those individuals that experience those particular results and do not necessarily reflect the results that you're going to achieve by introducing that one single change in your life. And so typically, when we're looking at the results of a matrix assessment profile and the recommendations, these recommendations are constructed with that whole person in mind. Where do the changes need to occur? What's the relationship between and among these changes? What realm of influence is predominantly causing or contributing to the symptoms that you're experiencing? Is it something structural? In other words, did you just have an accident? Has there been a repeated and extended period of time when you've been basically inactive? You haven't been doing much, either the result of an injury or a disease or a disorder, or by choice, as a result of being too stressed out. What do all these things mean? How do you interpret them? How do you incorporate all of these individual findings coming from conventional assessments, the blood work, the urine, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, IBS being a symptom? And does that road lead us to an understanding that virtually every disorder, every diagnosis in reality is simply another word for symptom? So is hypertension a disease, or is it a symptom of an underlying cause, compromise, or imbalance? And if so, where is that compromise, imbalance, deficiency originating? Is it in the realm of structure? Is it in the realm of biochemistry? Or is it in that virtual realm of psychological, emotional, and spiritual compromises? This is, in fact, the entire basis for a matrix assessment profile, assessing the biological matrix, assessing the human matrix that includes those 3 realms, in addition to a history of developmental trauma, of shock trauma, of repetitive thought disorders, of things that you choose to expose yourself to on a regular basis that eventually collapse possibilities that you might experience this, that, or the other thing into a probability or statistical likelihood that you're in fact going to experience something if you keep doing what it is that you're doing and getting the same result. And that probability ultimately is going to show up in your life as an imbalance, a compromise, a deficiency. Now, obviously, we have choices to make all along the way here. We have recommendations that include things like, well, these are the types of exercises or the types of changes that you need to introduce in order to accommodate the physical symptoms that you're experiencing, knowing that, in fact, disruptions in the biochemistry, distortions in the psychological, emotional, and spiritual realm can, in fact, all cause or contribute to physical symptoms. And so therein lies the dilemma. How do you track these symptoms from their expression to their source? And then how do you turn these symptoms into solutions? Well, this in fact is the whole point of the matrix assessment profile. This is what sets it apart from every other evaluation out there. This is why over the last 40 years, having worked with tens of thousands of people in over 55 countries, that the matrix assessment profile has become such an intricate part of these individuals' lives. And I'm hoping that after listening to this and the previous videos and some of the information available on our website at mymatrixmap.com, that you're going to arrive at the same conclusion. So whether you're in a perfect state of health or you're questioning your state of health and you'd like just a general assessment, or if you've been everywhere, you've done everything, you've seen everyone, and you've been told one of the things I referred to earlier, or been told that it's all in your head, not only is this an assessment that you seriously want to consider, but you want to also pay attention to the answers to that question: why are you experiencing what you're experiencing? So structural compromise is relatively easy to address and deal with. Biochemical, biological compromises, equally as easy to identify and address through a series of recommendations and protocols. But the virtual realm, involving psychology, involving emotions, involving spiritual precepts, a little more difficult to identify. So one of the tools that I regularly use to establish my baseline psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually is associated with the fact that the brain, being a transducer and a critical element in the process of determining where the compromises are going to be, to what degree they're going to exist, to what degree they're going to affect my livelihood, are in fact going to be exhibited in the results of something like a personal EEG, knowing that all you're going to see once again are effects, but you're still going to have to make a decision as to what's the most effective and efficient way to turn those symptoms into solutions, knowing that those symptoms are rooted in that virtual realm. Now, this virtual realm includes a whole host of possibilities, including everything from psychology, neurology, neuroscience, quantum physics, spirituality. But when we take all of these concepts and we begin to massage them, and we start to extract information from a variety of sources having to deal with fitness, having to deal with biochemical integrity, having to deal with diet, having to deal with supplements, having to deal with mindset, all of these things have to be weighed, balanced, and appropriately integrated, because it's always going to be about the right thing at the right time in the right order in order to achieve and maintain any kind of balance in your life. But know this, that every time you reach that crossroad, every time you make a decision, every time you make a choice and you achieve or acquire some degree of stability, there's going to be a next level up. There's going to be something else that you want, something else that you could choose, something else that you could do to enhance your current life experience. This is the benefit of long-term and regular assessments with the MAP. The MAP is going to not only demonstrate the effects of what it is that you've determined are appropriate for you at this particular time, in part based on my recommendations and the protocols that I develop for you, but also in part based on your symptomatic change, in part based on your response, and in part based on your feedback or your interpretation. So why is interpretation important? Because you and I and everyone on this planet are in fact the biological end product of our interpretation of our perceptions. And here's where it starts to get a little foggy, because people choose to stop at different times in this and every other process. For one reason, they feel comfortable with the results they've achieved. They just want to maintain them. For another reason, The next step up is a little too challenging. It's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too much effort. It's a little bit too much to absorb, to metabolize, to integrate, to establish a 3 to 10-minute discipline in the morning for the exclusive purpose of maintaining a productive mindset. And so using tools like the Muse, using tools like the dichotic dissertation, the audios that assist in achieving and maintaining alpha wave states of brain function, there are many and a myriad tools available at every step along the way, most of which I've been exposed to over a period of time. So, yes, I'm familiar with, and I'm actually credentialed, and I'm educated, and I'm certified, and I'm licensed in a whole variety of areas, ranging from 300 hours of applied kinesiology to iridology to chiropractic to acupuncture to human biochemistry, orthomolecular nutrition, even forensics, to name a few. And the list goes on and on and on. But all of these were based on suggestions by my peers, by my colleagues, in response to my question as to why are two people, same sex, same age, same socioeconomic background, experiencing the same symptoms, but they're getting two entirely different results in response to the current standard of care? So depending on who you consult at the particular point of experiencing symptoms is going to determine the type of recommendations that you receive. And the more specialized those individuals become, the more specialized those recommendations become. And then we're looking at the suggestions and the recommendations through a very narrow lens of a specialty. And so if you go with a back pain, for instance, to a massage therapist, unless they've had experience and credentials and education over a wide range of alternatives, you're going to get a massage. You go to an orthopedic surgeon, you're going to get an orthopedic opinion. Same with a neurosurgeon, the same with a gastroenterologist, the same with any of the conventional and unconventional specialties. This isn't a hack on conventional medicine. It's a hack on every specialized discipline in the healthcare system. So it's not by any means a criticism. It's to encourage you to become aware and to think about what it is that you're asking and what it is that you're being given in response to those questions, in terms of, this is what we think is wrong, this is why we think it's wrong, this is what we think you should do about it. Unless and until the entire person is taken into consideration and the fundamental aspects of the human experience have been taken into consideration in terms of why you're experiencing what you are and determining what you can do about it, then essentially you're being given recommendations and suggestions based on effects of an underlying cause, compromise, disorder, deficiency, imbalance, that are clearly going to be demonstrated within the context of the matrix assessment profile. Now, this isn't to say that all healthcare professions do not have access to this information or to the basic tools that we use to evaluate and to create recommendations, but it is about how those tools are used. For instance, the Muse can be considered a biofeedback device. It's giving you information about. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't really give you any suggestions in terms of why you're experiencing what you are. It does give you some guidance in terms of what it is that you could do better, or what you could do in addition to what you're already doing, in terms of balancing and integrating, making more coherent, making more concentrated the efforts and the effects of your daily discipline, things such as meditation, contemplation, prayer, deep abdominal breathing, focusing on your breath. Any form of mindfulness is going to achieve the same thing, but then it's a tool for monitoring your results. Now, the dichotics, on the other hand, are a tool that you can implement in conjunction with monitoring the various brainwave frequencies to actually modify or alter the effects that you're seeing with a device like the Muse. So by listening to the audio once a day, typically before you go to bed at night, 7, 8, 9, some of them are 10 minutes long, essentially what's happening is you're listening to a dialogue that is created specifically to deal with a particular issue that you've identified that is troubling you. Things like inability to sleep, insomnia, inability to lose weight, inability to manage your stress effectively. All of these things can be frustrating, but a part of that solution can be something as simple as the dichotic dissertation audios. Here's how they work. I've created audios for each of these individual issues. And in listening to each of them, you're going to first hear some calm sounds, things like the waves on the beach, the wind blowing through the trees, some peaceful, calm, sedative music, things to basically put you in a receptive frame of mind. And then you're going to hear my voice, and my voice is going to be talking about something kind of related to what you're experiencing, but really incidental to the whole process. And it's typically a dialogue, something like, the young man was walking down the beach, the young girl was walking through the forest, contemplating whatever it was that they were disturbed by, the inability to lose weight, the inability to manage their stress, or one of a variety of other perceived discomforts, perceived disorders, perceived inabilities. And as you hear my voice talking about the person walking down the beach, walking through the mountains, walking through the forest, my voice then disappears. You continue to hear the sounds. You begin to hear something called binaural beats, which are simply brainwave frequencies encoded into the audio, designed to entrain various aspects of your brain that are designated for the purpose of establishing resonant frequencies in the brain known to be associated with productive contributions to the human environment, involving the structure, the biochemistry, the psychological, emotional, and spiritual components. And as you listen to these beats and you listen to these sounds, my voice comes back on. One voice, same voice, in both ears at the same time, telling two entirely different stories that have nothing to do with each other, except for the fact that where I begin in one story in the right ear and I stop in the left ear, that brief pause and where I start again actually create a third story in the center of your brain, in the center of your awareness. And now that monkey mind that's generated by the prefrontal cortex over your eyebrows, associated with high anxiety, with depression, with focus, with concentration, with decision making, is quieted. It's put to bed. And now your subconscious mind, being associated with the alpha brainwave frequencies, is now listening very intently to that connection between the two stories. So I might say something like, well, and then he stopped. And in the second story, saying something like, feeling stressed. Built into each of the individual stories, built into the combination of the two stories, having nothing to do with each other except for the connection between the two stories, resulting in a third story, allowing your subconscious mind to become entrained to a productive set of brainwave frequencies that all contribute to your human experience, your biological matrix, your biological environment, and to your neurology, your physiology, your psychology, as perceived through your five senses. In this case, the combination of hearing and the combination of visualizing or imaging, imagining what it is that these dialogues are actually all about. And so as this third story becomes absorbed by your subconscious mind, so do the suggestions that are built into these stories, simply because the subconscious mind is not a decision-making portion of the mind. It is a servant. It will do whatever you tell it to do, and in fact, it doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie. It accepts whatever you tell it on a repeated basis as fact, which is one of the related causes to vicious thought disorders, repetitive thought disorders. What you focus on expands. But when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And as Dr. Phil so popularly said, no matter how flat you make a pancake, it still has two sides, which means everything is what it isn't. This is a potential solution, but it's also a potential cause. That mere disruption in the known brainwave frequencies associated with normal neurological function, normal physiological function, normal biological attunement, normal psychological, emotional, and spiritual compatibility. And so the dichotic dissertation is a viable tool for incorporating into your daily discipline, simply because you don't have to commit to anything but put the headsets on, load up the MP3 player, click it on, listen to the audio, and go to sleep. Let the built-in functions of your mind do the work for you. Doesn't involve a membership, doesn't involve going to the gym, doesn't involve anything more than a few minutes of your time, as does the morning discipline that I've been talking for a couple of months to all of the people involved in our membership site about. And so the membership site is another alternative for you getting involved. Even if you just want to get to know us a little bit better, you want to know what it is that I talk about on these calls. Every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, I have a live discussion with all of the people in the membership. And I also, once a week, provide a separate audio specifically for the members that is associated with the discussions that we have on Wednesdays. And then I also produce videos and write articles and create bundles and just a ton of resources associated with not only understanding, but looking at things that nobody else is looking at in ways that nobody else is looking at them, for the mere purpose of offering some alternatives, offering some solutions, offering something that resonates with you as a potential tool for turning your symptoms into solutions. And so it isn't really as simple as, well, Dr. D, what do you do about this? What do you do about that? I have high blood pressure. I have elevated cholesterol. I have IBS. I have fibromyalgia. These are all symptoms of an underlying cause, an underlying imbalance, an underlying deficiency, an underlying compromise in one or more of the three fundamental areas related to the human experience. And so once again, until and unless all of these potential compromises or contributions to these compromises is at least acknowledged, if not considered, in terms of making recommendations, then you can go to the massage therapist and get a massage. Great benefit, short term. Then you can go to the orthopedic surgeon, assess the integrity of your spine and related structures, bony structures, MRIs, conventional lab work, conventional urinalysis, all the same things that we are in fact looking at as part of the matrix assessment profile. But once again, we're looking at them in ways that nobody else is looking at them. And we're looking at the same things. It isn't like I've identified something new and different that's out there. I'm looking at a lot of opinions that I've been exposed to over a period of 40 years in everything from the soft sciences to the hard sciences and everything in between. And this is what I offer you. This is what I want to share with you. This is the whole point of the matrix assessment profile. This is my work. This is my passion. This is what I love to do every day. And I'd love the opportunity to share that experience and that expertise with you. And so by all means, if you have interest, additional interest in just knowing more about what this entire process is, certainly visit the website, certainly click on some of the relevant links, certainly look at some of the individualized products and processes and resources that we've made available to you on our site and through our membership. One of the benefits of being a member, other than being on the live weekly calls and getting the free weekly audios and videos and related resources, is the fact that everything that you could possibly purchase from Matrix Transformation is available to the members at a substantial discount for as long as you're a member, and there's no long-term commitment. You can cancel anytime. You can look at it. You can get a sneak peek. You can stay for a month, stay for a week, look at what's available. Look at everything on the membership site and make a decision for yourself. Do I want to go any further? Do I even want to do this? These are all choices that you've now been exposed to. And so the next step is, what are you going to decide to do with it? Because it goes from a thought to a feeling to an emotion to an action. And that action is going to produce results. And those results you are responsible for, because you have made the choice to take it from a possibility to a probability to a likelihood to an actual experience. And so in having said all of that, I know I haven't given you a totally comprehensive assessment of what it is that I do every day. I've tried to give you a flavor for what it is that I spend my life doing, but in reality, that's constantly changing too. I'm constantly exposed to new information, new research, all of which are being incorporated not only into the information that I share with our members and with the people who subscribe to the Matrix Assessment Profile as part of their recommendations and their protocols, but also just as part of the personal evaluation process that I go through, using some of the caveats from my book, using some of the information that has proven to be consistent over a period of at least 40 years that I've been working with it, and also being open to, being exposed to, being responsive to other inquiries coming from outside of my personal realm of belief and incorporating them into what eventually becomes a new belief for me. So there's a whole lot more to be said about, well, what's this whole process of thoughts to feelings to emotions to things? How does that work? That's a whole dialogue in and of itself. And I've actually spent the last 3 months on the membership call talking about just that, how it develops, where it originates, where it comes from, how it works, how we can intentionally become involved with that process to co-create a reality that's consistent and congruent with what it is that we believe. So we have opinions, we have facts, we have experiences, we all have these things in common. What we don't have is the same thoughts and feelings and emotions, experiences that each other individual on this planet has on a day-to-day basis. But there are some common mechanisms that are consistent with where all of these things come from, how they work, how they affect us, how they impact our biological environment, and how they influence the three realms that cause or contribute to all of the symptoms that an individual might experience during the course of a lifetime, and provide a foundation for understanding how to turn those symptoms into solutions. Now, there's so much more to be said about this, and every other week I'm going to take my time and hopefully share that time with you to discuss various aspects of this. But as you can imagine, this is far too big a dialogue to incorporate into a short video on Facebook or any other venue for that matter. So I'd like to offer you the opportunity to join me to explore some of the tools, the strategies, the techniques, some of the information, some of the expertise that I've acquired over the last 40 years, to take a second look, if you haven't looked already, at Beyond Medicine, Exploring a New Way of Thinking. Basically, everything I just talked about, consolidated it into 200 or 300 pages. If you're a reader, if not, we've got audios, we've got videos, we've got consults available if, in fact, you just like to talk to me about whether or not this is something that's for real and whether or not it's something that's for you. But in any event, I'm going to be back here again in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be available all week long, every week, talking with these things, about these things with our members, talking in the interim, creating dialogues via audio and video and articles, and incorporating all of this information into an ever-evolving system of analysis, of interpretation, and of recommendations within the context of the matrix assessment profile. So I'm sorry if I haven't answered all of your questions individually, if I haven't addressed any of the specific issues that concern you, but I wanted to lay a foundation for you to understand what it is that I do and where it is that I'm coming from, that I have chosen to look at things that nobody else is looking at in ways that nobody else is looking at them. This is what I do every day. If you feel like it's something that's appropriate for you or something that you're even interested in, please do not hesitate to explore. I'm Dr. Richard DiCenso. I can't thank you enough for taking your time to spend with me today, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.